From a zoo whose director himself leads horrible animal abuse, to a zoo that feeds its animals meat tainted with embalming fluid, these places are definitely hell on earth for animals. First, let's look at a zoo where even the paying public is in on the abuse. Number 10. The Mumbai Zoo. Conditions at the Mumbai Zoo were so bad, animals die even before they reach their displays. In one case in 2016, a Humboldt penguin died just 3 months after it was acquired by the zoo. It was supposed to be put on display a month later. The thing is, that's not the only problem in this zoo. Built in 1861 as a botanical garden, small animal enclosures in the style of 19th century zoos were added from 1873 onwards. Despite its 53-acre area, the zoo was becoming quite crowded at this point. The thing is, the zoo kept on expanding on its animal exhibits despite many protests. The animals here are always subjected to trauma. One visitor said that the first thing he saw when he visited the place was a large group of people that were crowding around the leopard enclosure. They were throwing pebbles at the animal, who was clearly scared stiff, trying to get it to move. One man was banging at the glass walls of the tiny enclosure which held snakes. Zoo officials later stated that they fine visitors who harm the animals. The thing is, no guards were in sight while the abuses were happening. Number 9. Bowmanville Zoo. Once the oldest zoo in North America, Ontario's Bowmanville Zoo is now no more, which is probably for the better. Just a few months prior to the zoo's closure, the animal rights group PETA released a video showing zoo director Michael Hackenberger cruelly and repeatedly whipping a young tiger named Uno until it literally crapped itself out of fear. If reports are to be believed, this whipping of a tiger was not an isolated incident. Hackenberger, who also supplies animals for film, TV, and commercials, have also been accused of many instances of animal abuse. Number 8. Dhaka Zoo Bangladesh. This zoo in Bangladesh is slowly rebuilding its reputation after its tumultuous past. Over 20 animal deaths occurred in the zoo in 2009 alone. One of the more notable ones is the death of a lion named Ringo. The lion was found dead in his cage one morning, but has been suffering from various illnesses for a year prior to its death. In fact, it was already paralyzed and couldn't move properly. Ringo's death brought down the zoo's lion population from 18 to 17, which is probably a good thing given the fact that all of those lions had to share only 8 small cages. Whether there was abuse on the lion or not, the fact remains that multiple animals died within a span of just months during that year. 3 days before the lion's demise, a young giraffe died, and this one showed signs of poor health, which reflects just how poor the zoo's animal health management is. A few months earlier, a sambar deer, a baboon, a wildebeest, and the zoo's last Malayan tapir died in a span of a month. And a few months before that, a critically endangered Royal Bengal tiger, 2 freshwater crocodiles, a zebra, and an adjutant stork died, all in the same month. Number 7. The Gaza Zoo. Gaza would probably be the least likely place to have a zoo, but the fact is that it does. But much like the people of the city itself, the animals here are perennially in the crossfire. Opened in 2007, the zoo has long been called the world's worst zoo by animal welfare groups such as Four Paws and various international media outlets. Animals there were reported to have starved to death during military conflicts between Gaza's Hamas-led government and neighboring Israel. 10 years ago, the constant fighting actually devastated the zoo's animal population, so much so that zookeepers had to resort to taxidermy to preserve the animals that died and display them instead. In fact, more than 50 dead animals were taxidermied by the staff during this time. The zoo was finally closed in 2014, but was reopened in 2019 much to the dismay of animal rights groups. Their main attractions now are the lions that were smuggled in via tunnels from Egypt. Number 6. The Gaza Zoo. The Gaza Zoo in Cairo, Egypt was once among the world's best zoos. However, by the time it was expelled by the World Association of Zoos and Aquariums in 2004, this historical zoo was known for cruel animal abuse, litter, and poor management. The place has been more likened to a prison, with most of the animals kept in small, cramped cages. The lions in particular are only allowed to roam in larger spaces for 2 hours a day before they are forced back into their cages. There have been quite a number of incidents of animal cruelty in the zoo's long history. In 2004, 2 gorillas in the zoo were suspected to be infected with the Ebola virus. The 2 were immediately killed by the zookeepers without testing the animals whether they were infected or not. In 2006, more than 500 birds were inhumanely slaughtered in a move that zoo officials said was to prevent the outbreak of bird flu. In 2008, 2 men allegedly broke into the zoo and killed 2 camels. And in as late as 2013, 3 black bears were killed in what zoo officials called a bear riot, whatever that is. And a 3-year-old giraffe apparently killed itself due to mental issues. Number 5. The Natural Bridge Zoo, Virginia. This Virginia Roadside Zoo probably has more Federal Animal Welfare Act sanctions than any US zoos included in this video, with over 150 citations and still counting. These citations are for many reports of animal cruelty, most of them centered on the zoo's treatment of an elephant named Asher. According to reports, Asher was being forced to give rides to paying visitors, oftentimes while not being supervised by her handler. This is just one of the cruel things the elephant has been subjected to. The zoo was also accused of committing other horrendous acts. Aside from failing to provide animals with adequate veterinary care, they were also found to be guilty of not providing adequate food and water to all animals under their care. And possibly the most disturbing of them all is the bludgeoning of animals as a form of euthanasia. Number 4. Kiev Zoo. Constant fighting and loud noises from gunfire and bombs have made life simply unbearable for animals in Ukraine's Kiev Zoo. Not only are the animals here not being fed because of the war, the noise isn't actually good for them and their mental health. In a study published in 2019, animals react to loud noises with stress and agitation and will move towards quieter parts of their enclosures, a physical impossibility today. Moving the animals to a more peaceful location is probably the best solution, but to do it on a massive scale is easier said than done. While some of the smaller animals have been relocated to zoos in neighboring countries like Poland, transporting a number of large animals such as giraffes, elephants, and rhinos present a more challenging task. Even in normal circumstances, moving zoo animals is not an easy task. Animal transportation can have negative effects on the animal's welfare. Animals undergoing transportation can experience dehydration, fatigue, behavioral changes, and stress. At the moment, animals are being sedated and moved to underground spaces so that they could at least fare much better. Their handlers are also trying to stay with their charges overnight, risking their lives in the process. Number 3. The Oklahoma City Zoo. What landed the Oklahoma City Zoo on this list is mainly their elephant program, touted as being cruel by animal rights groups. Case in point is what happened to Chai, an Asian elephant that died in the zoo just 8 months after being transferred from Woodland Park Zoo in Seattle. She was found dead and alone in the outside exhibit at Oklahoma City Zoo in the early morning of a very cold January day in 2016. She was only 37 years old. Another female elephant named Bamboo didn't fare much better. She is being repeatedly attacked by at least one other female Asian elephant. In March of 2016, about 2 inches of her tail was bitten off in the third attack. Since her arrival, she has also suffered skin abrasions and fissures, a 6-inch gash on her trunk, and swelling above one eye. Caught between bullying and crushing loneliness, Bamboo has no way to escape these attacks and is responding aggressively and, ultimately, defensively with other elephants and staff. She is now often kept in isolation from the other elephants to avoid further attacks, with the zoo simply switching one form of her suffering for the other. But perhaps the worst offense of them all, that both Chai and Bamboo were exposed to the EEVH virus, which infected and caused the death of an elephant calf named Mali. And despite the dangers posed by the virus, Bamboo was still included in the zoo's elephant breeding program, which practically ensures the spread of the virus throughout the zoo's elephant population. Number 2. Surabaya Zoo, Indonesia. A place has to be a special kind of hell on earth to be called the Zoo of Death, but it's what animal rights groups have called Indonesia's Surabaya Zoo. This massive zoo has been in business since 1916 and is home to between 2,800 and 4,000 animals. PETA reports that animals at the Surabaya Zoo are forced to live in dirty, litter-ridden, bare, cramped cages, all while suffering from malnutrition, neglect, and other kinds of mistreatment. One notable death is that of a giraffe that died because it was eating plastic and litter that was lying around inside its enclosure. There's also the story of Rosek, an underfed tiger who very rarely ever gets fed, and when she does, the meat given to her was laced with formaldehyde. He starved to death after the embalming fluid rotted away his digestive tract. A petition was started in 2021 to permanently close down the Zoo of Death, but at the time of writing, the zoo is still operational. Number 1. Samut Prakan Crocodile Farm and Zoo. Many animal rights activists believe that Thailand's Samut Prakan Crocodile Farm and Zoo is one of the worst places for animals in the world, and with good reason. The cruelty and abuse here are not just allegations. PETA has actually released a video showing the poor conditions the animals are kept in and the abhorrent treatment that they are receiving every single day. In 2019, a PETA video expose of Samut Prakan Zoo showed that elephants at the facility are stabbed in order to make them perform tricks, crocodiles are struck with bamboo poles, and tigers are harassed for performances and photos with tourists. But it's the elephants who get most of the abuse here. They are paraded around the zoo multiple times a day. After this, they'll be forced to do tricks and even play soccer. And when all of that is finished, they are kept in enclosures with cold concrete floors, attached to extremely short chains, giving them no freedom to move around. Quite disturbingly, you can see most of these elephants bobbing their heads up and down or left and right, which animal experts say is a sign of mental distress and degradation. I'll see you guys next time.